When you finally get tired of pretending everything is fine, that's when real transformation begins. Confronting the chaos in your life isn't about shame, it's about honesty. It's about looking at the places you've avoided, the rooms you keep the lights off in, the habits you push to the back of your mind and saying, this can't stay this way. Chaos doesn't just appear. It grows in silence, it settles in when you stop paying attention, and it feeds off every moment you say, I'll deal with it later. But later is where dreams go to die. Later is where purpose gets dusty. Later is where you lose yourself piece by piece until you wake up wondering how you drifted so far from peace. Sometimes God allows the chaos to get loud enough that you can't ignore it anymore. Not because he wants to punish you, but because he loves you too much to let you live small, scattered, and overwhelmed. Chaos is often the sign that something inside you is overdue for healing. It's the evidence that you've been surviving instead of stewarding. It's a reminder that you've outgrown the version of yourself who could tolerate the dysfunction you've been sitting in. And if you don't confront the chaos will confront you at the worst possible moments. When you're trying to elevate, when you're stepping into something new, when you're praying for opportunities you aren't prepared to hold, there comes a moment when you have to stand in your own truth and say enough. Enough avoiding the hard conversations. Enough letting your environment reflect your overwhelm. Enough burying your emotions under distractions. Enough letting your life run you instead of you running your life. You deserve order. You deserve clarity. You deserve peace, but peace is not something you stumble into. Peace is something you choose, something you build, something you protect. And it starts with confronting what's been stealing it. When you finally decide to look at your chaos head on, you realize it didn't come to destroy you, it came to push you. Pressure has always been the midwife of purpose. The discomfort you feel isn't a sign that you're failing, it's a sign that you're shifting. A sign that something divine is trying to break through the clutter, but breakthrough can't happen in a place that's buried under old habits, old trauma, old patterns, and old excuses. You can't plant new seeds in soil that hasn't been turned. You can't build a new life on a foundation that's cracking. Confrontation is uncomfortable, but ignoring what's breaking only guarantees it will break you too. You may have spent years pretending you were okay, smiling while falling apart, showing up for everyone else while abandoning yourself. Being strong because that's what people expected, but strength isn't measured by how well you hide your chaos. Real strength is measured by your willingness to face it. It's measured by waking up one morning and saying, I refuse to keep living like this. That moment right there is the birth of organization, not the kind you write in a planner, but the kind that reshapes your entire way of being. And yes, it will feel messy at first. Confronting chaos always does. You'll uncover things you didn't want to feel. You'll remember things you thought you buried. You'll see patterns you inherited and pain you normalized. But you can't heal what you refuse to acknowledge. You can't clean what you never open. You can't organize a life you're not willing to be honest about. And the beautiful thing about chaos is that once you confront it, it loses its power. Once you name it, you can tame it. Once you see it, you can start reshaping it into order. There will also be moments when confronting chaos feels like you're taking 3 steps back instead of forward. That's okay. Growth is not linear. It's a series of courageous returns to yourself. Every time you choose clarity over comfort, you grow. Every time you choose truth over avoidance, you grow. Every time you choose organization over overwhelm, you grow. And with every bit of growth, the chaos shrinks, the noise becomes background. The things that once controlled you lose their grip, because you've learned how to stand in your authority instead of bowing to your anxiety. You are not called to live in confusion. You are not called to live in clutter. You are not called to wake up every day feeling behind. You are not called to hold everything together with emotional tape and spiritual shortcuts. You are called to be whole. You are called to be grounded. You are called to live with intention, not exhaustion. But intention requires order, and order begins with confrontation. And I know confronting the chaos feels like a battle. But you were built for battles that lead to breakthroughs. You were built for moments that require courage. You were built for seasons where you have to rise up, not because life got easier, but because you got stronger. This is your moment to reclaim control. This is your moment to stop running. This is your moment to stop waiting for someone else to clean up what only you can face. You can't organize your life until you're willing to look at the parts of it you've been avoiding. But once you do, everything begins to shift. Your mind shifts, your habits shift, your energy shifts. Your entire life begins to align with who you were always meant to become. Because transformation doesn't start with perfection, it starts with honesty, and honesty is the beginning of order. That's the moment you stop living in chaos and start living on purpose. There comes a point in your journey where you realize that the version of you that got you here cannot take you where you're trying to go next. Growth demands something, destiny demands something, elevation demands something. And the truth is, it will not always feel good. It will not always feel natural. It will not always feel convenient. That's why discipline becomes the bridge. Not desire, not good intentions, not wishful thinking discipline. The uncomfortable, daily choosing that shapes you into the person who is ready for the blessings you've been praying for. You don't get organized by accident. You don't walk into clarity by coincidence. You don't stumble into purpose on the days you feel lazy, tired, overwhelmed, or emotionally drained. And if we're being honest, most of the days when God is trying to grow you won't be days where you feel like doing anything at all. But your feelings were never meant to be your leader. They were meant to be indicators, not dictators. Discipline steps in when feelings fall short. Discipline says, I hear how you feel, but we have somewhere we're going. Discipline becomes the steady anchor when your emotions are all over the place. In every season of change, God will test your consistency before He hands you completion. He wants to know if you can steward the little before He trusts you with the much. We pray for the next level, but the next level comes with new responsibilities, new routines, new boundaries, new expectations. And if you can't manage what's in front of you now, how will you manage what's coming? Discipline is not punishment, it is preparation. It is the spiritual training ground that strengthens you long before the elevation shows up. Some of us keep waiting for motivation to magically appear. We wait for that one perfect morning when the sun hits just right, the mood is just right, the energy is just right. But motivation is inconsistent, motivation is emotional, motivation is temporary. That's why discipline is necessary. It shows up even when motivation doesn't. Discipline is the quiet commitment you make when no one is watching. It's the secret work no one applauds. It's the early mornings, the hard decisions, the uncomfortable no's, the intentional focus. Discipline builds the backbone of destiny. There will be days when discipline feels like betrayal to your old self. When the version of you that found comfort in chaos, distraction, procrastination, or emotional clutter starts resisting your growth. Because your old self doesn't want to die quietly. It wants to pull you back into patterns that feel familiar even if they weren't healthy. But that's when you remind yourself that you're not forcing discipline to impress anybody. You're forcing discipline so you don't repeat cycles that God already delivered you from. Discipline is how you honor your healing. And listen, discipline isn't about doing everything perfectly. It's about doing the right things consistently. It's about showing up again even after you fall off track. It's about realigning yourself with your purpose every time you drift. Discipline doesn't require perfection, it requires persistence. It requires grace for yourself, but it also requires truth. Grace says, start again. Truth says, but let's not keep repeating what keeps breaking us. Sometimes discipline feels lonely. It feels like you're walking away from people, places, and habits that used to comfort you. It feels like you're missing out while everyone else is free and carefree. But what looks like restriction is actually liberation. When you choose discipline, you're not losing freedom. You're gaining control. Control over your time, your environment, your choices, your energy, your future. Discipline creates space for peace. It builds room for growth. It prepares you for blessings that require structure, not chaos. Think about the things you've been praying for. A healthier mind, a stronger spiritual life, a cleaner home, a clearer schedule, a more focused purpose. A stable routine, a deeper sense of self. None of these happen without discipline. You can't wish your way into alignment. You work your way into alignment. You build it choice by choice, day by day, moment by moment. Discipline doesn't just change your habits, it changes your identity. It forms the character required to maintain the life you're building. When you start showing up with discipline, something powerful begins to change inside you. You start trusting yourself again. You start believing in your ability to follow through. You stop making promises to your future that your present self has no intention of keeping. You begin to realize that organization isn't just about cleaning your space. It's about cleaning your patterns. It's about creating a life where you're not constantly catching up, apologizing to yourself, or patching up the consequences of inconsistency. Discipline is the act of choosing future you over current you. It's the decision to protect the promise God placed inside you. It's recognizing that your purpose is too valuable to leave unguarded, and sometimes the most spiritual thing you can do is set a routine. Sometimes the most anointed thing you can do is commit to consistency. Sometimes the most healing thing you can do is stop negotiating with your own excuses. And yes, discipline requires sacrifice. You will sacrifice comfort. You will sacrifice old habits. You will sacrifice the illusion of ease. But every sacrifice becomes a seed that grows into stability, a seed that grows into confidence, a seed that grows into peace, a seed that grows into the life you've been envisioning but never fully experienced. Discipline turns seeds into harvest. But here's the beautiful part. Once discipline becomes a part of you, it doesn't feel like force anymore. It feels like alignment. It feels like rhythm. It feels like flow. What once took effort becomes natural. What once felt impossible becomes sustainable. You become the kind of person who doesn't just dream about change, you embody it. Because discipline is not just about organizing your life, it's about organizing your identity around who you were always meant to be. That's the bridge that carries you from surviving to becoming. There's something powerful that happens when you decide to bring order into the spaces around you. Not because cleaning a room is magical, but because it reveals the truth you've been living with. Your environment is often the echo of your internal world. When things around you are scattered, it's usually because something inside you has gone unattended. When the table is piled up, when the laundry is overflowing, when the desk is drowning under papers, it's not just disorganization. It's a reflection of a soul that's been stretched thin, tired, overwhelmed, or running on survival mode. And that's why organizing your life has less to do with objects and more to do with your spirit. There's a clarity that rises in you when you begin to shift the atmosphere around you. You start seeing things you hadn't noticed, both physically and emotionally. You see the habits you've allowed, you see the heaviness you've been carrying, you see the silent stories you've been telling yourself. A chair that collects clothes isn't about the clothes. It's about the moments you didn't have the energy to take care of yourself. A messy drawer isn't about the drawer, it's about the thoughts you kept shoving aside. The clutter is not the enemy, it's the evidence. And when you finally decide to clean your space, you're telling your spirit, I'm ready to heal what made this my normal. When you begin to clear your environment, something inside you begins to breathe again. You don't realize how heavy clutter feels until it's gone. It presses on you, it steals energy from you, it whispers guilt into you. And every time you look at the mess, a piece of you gets smaller, not because of the mess itself, but because of what you believe it says about you. But let me tell you this, disorder does not define you, but your decision to confront it can redefine you. Clearing your space is not about impressing anyone. It's not about perfection. It's about giving your soul room to stretch. When the physical world around you is in order, your mind finds stillness. Your thoughts become clearer. Your emotions settle. That's because your environment speaks to your nervous system. When you walk into a room full of chaos, your body feels it. Your spirit feels it. But when you walk into a room that reflects peace, you become more capable of protecting peace within yourself. For some of us, cleaning our space feels emotionally heavy because the mess carries memories. You pick up a letter or an old picture, and suddenly you're reminded of a heartbreak. You open a closet and see things you bought in a version of life you've outgrown. You find reminders of people you had to let go or habits you finally released. And it feels easier to close the drawer and walk away, but healing requires more from you. It requires you to sit in those moments, to touch the memories, to release the emotions attached to them, and then choose to let them go. Clearing space isn't just physical, it's spiritual release. Sometimes God is waiting for you to clean the space before he fills it. Sometimes he's waiting for you to let go of what's been stealing your energy before he pours new strength into you. Sometimes the environment you've been tolerating is blocking the clarity you've been praying for. You want new vision, but you're surrounded by old patterns. You want fresh direction, but you wake up in a room full of reminders of yesterday. You want transformation, but your environment is still hosting the version of you you're trying to grow away from. And listen, you don't have to fix everything in one day. You don't have to organize your whole life at once. Start small. Start with a corner. Start with a drawer. Start with the area that carries the most emotional weight. Because what matters is not the speed. It's the intention. Every time you choose to bring order into one small place, you're sending a message to your spirit. We're moving forward. Every little bit of progress creates momentum, and that momentum eventually becomes transformation. You'll begin to notice how your energy shifts when your environment shifts. You'll wake up with a little more clarity, a little more motivation, a little more peace. You'll start to feel like you're in control again, not of everything, but of something. And when you take control of something small, you build the confidence to take control of something bigger. Cleaning your space becomes a spiritual discipline, a practice that aligns your internal world with your external reality. And here's the truth, clutter is a thief. It steals time, it steals focus, it steals peace. You don't realize how much it's taking from you until you remove it. That's why the enemy loves distraction, because a distracted mind can't hear direction. But when you remove the noise from your environment, you make space for God's voice to become clearer. When your home is in order, your prayer feels different. Your worship feels different. Your thinking feels different. Your decisions feel different. Organization becomes a doorway to spiritual sensitivity. And sometimes cleaning your space becomes the first step in cleaning your life. You put the clothes away, and suddenly you feel the urge to put your thoughts in order. You clear the table, and suddenly you're inspired to set goals again. You organize your room, and suddenly you feel strong enough to set boundaries, because order produces confidence. And confidence produces alignment. There's power in creating an atmosphere that supports your growth. There's power in choosing to live in a space that reflects the peace you're cultivating. There's power in telling yourself, I deserve to live in a place that feels like healing. Because when you clean your space, you're not just shifting your environment, you're shifting your spirit. That's when clarity becomes your new normal. There comes a moment in your journey where you realize that desire alone is not enough to hold the life you're praying for. Wanting to change is beautiful, but wanting without structure just leaves you inspired for a moment and unchanged for years. At some point, you have to build systems that support the version of you God has been calling forward. Systems that protect your vision, systems that stabilize your growth, systems that guard your peace, systems that keep you from slipping back into a life that no longer reflects who you're becoming. Because purpose cannot thrive in randomness. Destiny does not flourish in chaos. Calling cannot rest on a foundation that keeps shifting every time emotions shift. And what many of us call waiting on God is really God waiting on us to create the structure that can carry what we're asking Him for. You don't pray for rain and then build no vessel to catch it. You don't ask for elevation and then refuse the discipline required to maintain it. Systems are how you show God and yourself that you're ready to steward what's coming. Building systems isn't about perfection. It's about creating patterns that help you stay grounded. It's about making decisions ahead of time so you don't sabotage yourself in moments of weakness. It's about giving your future self the support your past self never had, and it's about removing the guesswork that keeps draining your energy. When you have systems, you're not spending every day trying to figure out where to start. You already know. Your structure becomes the quiet strength that carries you on the days your spirit feels heavy. Some of us grew up surviving, so the idea of building order feels foreign. We learned how to adapt, how to react, how to push through, but we never learned how to build rhythms that sustain us. Survival taught you urgency, but it didn't teach you sustainability, and now you're stepping into a season where sustainability matters, where peace matters, where clarity matters, where you can't afford to keep living at the mercy of whatever emotion hits you that morning. Systems give you stability, they create safety, they form the container that allows your purpose to expand without overwhelming you. Think about a house. The foundation comes before the decoration. You don't hang pictures on walls that aren't steady. You don't put furniture in a room with no floor, but many people try to decorate their lives without first building the stability that holds it all together. They start dreaming before planning, they start moving before organizing, they start working without understanding what they're actually working toward. But when you decide to build systems, you give yourself something solid to stand on, and solid ground changes everything. A system can be as simple as a morning routine that sets the tone for your day. It can be a nightly practice that helps your mind rest. It can be weekly habits that keep your home, your heart, your schedule, and your priorities aligned. It can be boundaries that protect your emotional space. It can be planning out your responsibilities so you can stop living in panic mode. It can be setting goals that are broken into steps instead of dreams that never leave your imagination. Systems don't have to be complicated. They just have to be intentional. And here's the powerful truth. Systems become sacred when they serve your assignment. They become the invisible support that strengthens everything you're building. When your life has structure, you stop relying on willpower alone. You stop feeling overwhelmed. You stop trying to hold everything in your mind. You stop letting breakdowns surprise you. Your structure becomes your anchor, and your anchor becomes your peace. There are things you've been asking for that require you to develop a new level of order. You want healing, but healing requires practices that keep you grounded. You want purpose, but purpose requires habits that keep you focused. You want transformation, but transformation requires routines that reinforce your growth. You want clarity, but clarity requires space. Mental, emotional, and physical. Building systems gives you the structure necessary to receive what you've been preparing for spiritually. Sometimes you have to admit to yourself that the life you're living is too small for the gifting inside you. Not because the life is bad, but because your calling is bigger, bigger than disorganization, bigger than inconsistency, bigger than procrastination, bigger than the habits you picked up when you didn't know any better, and bigger than the fear of starting over. Your systems don't just support who you are, they support who you're becoming, and yes, it takes work to create systems. It takes effort, it takes honesty, it takes facing the parts of your life that feel out of control. It takes admitting what you've been avoiding. It takes learning new rhythms and letting go of patterns that kept you comfortable but stagnant. But every system you build becomes an act of self-respect. Every routine becomes a testament of your growth. Every boundary becomes a declaration of your worth. Every step toward order becomes a step toward the life you were meant to live. You may not build it perfectly at first, and that's okay. Systems evolve as you evolve. What matters is that you start. Start with the area that feels the most chaotic. Start with what drains you the most. Start with what you keep promising yourself you'll fix one day. Start where you are with what you have in the season you're in. Because every structure you build today becomes the foundation your future stands on. And over time, you'll notice something beautiful. Your systems begin to level you up. They start catching you when old habits try to pull you back. They start reminding you of who you're becoming. They start protecting the peace you worked so hard to cultivate. And they start freeing up the energy you need to focus on your assignment instead of constantly managing your mess. That's the moment your life stops feeling like chaos and starts feeling like alignment.